Hey there, my Spiritual Business Mastery 101 12-week live coaching intensive is starting in 2 weeks. Come out of the gates in 2024 and let's get your spiritual business started. If you've been wanting to get started on the right foot, have no idea where to start or where to go, don't worry because this live program will help you learn all the basics and more. Join now at thehappyhealingshop.com/mastermind.
After leaving the corporate 9-to-5 grind, I became the boss of my own spiritual business, helping others explore and navigate the human experience from insight, wisdom, and lessons learned along the way. Today, I help aspiring spiritual entrepreneurs gain the confidence to share their gifts with the world. Welcome to the Happy Healing Shop podcast. I'm your host, Trang Pham Nguyen, and each week we'll dive into incredible stories of strength, resilience, and transformation. So, if you are ready for some serious breakthroughs, laughs and tears, and stories that will inspire you, you are in the right place, my friend. Let's get started.
Ooh, all right. So tomorrow is my birthday by the time this is published, and I turned 35 years old. And I'm not sure, there's just so much to say, and I don't even know where to start. And it took me a while to get all these thoughts together for you to show the 35 lessons I learned in my 35 years here on Earth. And it's interesting because I know there's a lot more that I will learn along the way. However, there's so much that I can reflect on and share. And I did read ahead like online of other people who have had their 30 lessons they learned when they were 30 and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to really copy it. I just get some inspiration, but I feel like some of it, sometimes it can come off generic, like don't care about what people think about you, etc. And I feel like even though the intentions are good and they are really good lessons, I think I wanted it to be a little bit more personalized, or things that made me in my life go, oh, or things I wish the younger version of myself knew. But even looking back then, I don't think the younger version of myself would have accepted these lessons that I know now, right? Because that was a different version of me. So this might be an extra long episode, but I hope you like it, as I've had a lot of time to reflect on it. Okay, so lesson 35, we need to redefine family, because family is what you choose and what you make of it. It's not who is related by blood. If it is just you and your dog, if it's just you and your partner, or you and your friends, because those are the ones that you feel safe with and they've always supported you, they've wanted the best for you, they aren't toxic, then so be it. Your family is not by blood. It is the family you choose to create. And for your mental health, if you need to physically distance yourself and have space away from family, so be it. We need to normalize this, because I find it very interesting how with sometimes we have toxic family members or just unhealthy family members. If we had a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, or even coworkers that treat us the way as some of these toxic family members would be, our friends and people would tell us, leave them, ditch them, they're not good for you. However, I find it so funny that when it's a blood-related relative, people have that messaging of like, well, give them another chance, or they're your blood relative. In other words, it's another way of saying like, accept this behavior. Lesson number 34.
All right, next, you can learn a lot about yourself when you travel, especially solo travel. And as I'm recording this piece of the podcast, I am actually meeting with a friend for her birthday in San Diego. And in the past, I have traveled for maybe over 2 years overseas by myself. And I know if you haven't done so, it sounds like the impossible or something that only brave people can do. But before my first trip, I was so scared to take that trip. But I never regret any of my travels at all. It has shown, I think the best way to describe it is that you are completely removed from everyone back home. The influences from family, friends, colleagues, from society. Sometimes you meet other people along the road that are living unconventional styles and ways of living, and they're able to find happiness. And that's when I saw and thought to myself, like, oh, hey, they are happy, and yet they're not doing the regular 9-to-5 grind. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just we are so used to seeing that as a norm, that we don't question what other ways that we can live and be happy. So when you get out of your comfort zone, or when you meet new people that live in different ways, different cultures, just have different styles of doing things, it kind of expands your mind if you're willing to be open to it. And the reason why I say you start to get to know yourself better is because you aren't influenced by anyone back home. So all the you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you kind of get some silence to yourself, whether it's sitting on that plane ride, on a bus, walking around, exploring things, and you start to learn what you like, what you don't like, what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what lights you up. And sometimes when you come back from traveling, your mind has expanded and changed. And when you come home, I think one of the hardest things for me was realizing that everyone was stuck in the same place because nothing really back home for them changed. And internally, you become a different person over time. And it was really hard because you start to grapple with the fact that, are these my friends anymore? If they don't support my dreams, is this something I hold on to even though we've had history? So even though travel has expanded my mind and has opened my eyes to ways of doing things, it doesn't come with some challenges as well, especially transitioning back home.
Lesson number 33. Hope is a double-edged sword. It can be good or it can be bad. On the days that are difficult, or even, if you listen to episode 1 of my podcast, my dad immigrated to America and he almost died pretty much. But when you are in such difficult situations like that, for a better life, hope that you'll make it is something that might keep you living for another day, right? But when you are in an unhealthy relationship or or even like a job, like I was at Disney, and you think you hope things will get better. But unless there is a drastic change or an intervention, in my opinion, or something like that, things don't get better. They usually don't. And because we hope so much, that's why we stay in unhealthy relationships, unhealthy jobs longer than we probably should. Lesson number 32. It doesn't matter if what you say is right. It matters more in saying it in a way where your audience can be receptive to it. So this can go in any industry. It could be in politics, religion, spirituality, debates, possibly. And this idea actually came to me when I was washing the dishes. And when you're trying to get your idea across to people, or you're trying to say, this is wrong, or how could you believe this? It doesn't matter, or even statistically, or it's been proven that XYZ. It doesn't really matter if you are factually correct. It's if the other person isn't receptive or willing to be open to it the way you're saying it, then your message just falls flat. And this is why you can see in marketing, there are ways where they figure out how to say it or be persuasive. So that way the person you're in says, hey, I want to buy that, or hey, I believe in that. Life lesson number 31. Love is not enough. I have gathered this from being a wedding planner and also seeing relationships play out in people that I know. And I see behind the scenes of wedding planner, and it's changed my perspective a lot on love, which I will talk about in a future episode. Love alone is not going to cure unhealthy habits. It's not going to cure, toxicity, which brings me to life lesson number 30. Nothing is ever guaranteed in life. And this is one of those things I had when I was visiting friends in Australia. There's a friend I have that I love talking deep stuff to, intellectually, all these concepts. And, I asked him about oh, do you think you're going to marry so-and-so? And he says, I don't know. And I remember thinking, what? And it was because he said, I don't think, honestly, anything's ever guaranteed in life. And I think that's the interesting part. It's true, because we marry people. We get into relationships or careers or situations where we think it's going to be a long-term thing. It's going to be definite, infinite, whatever you want to call it. And yet we are so surprised or taken aback when there's been a change to it, or a separation, divorce, and I think it's hard, especially for a planner like me, to go through things. It's the same thing with my business. When I had a split from my business partner a year ago, it was difficult because I think I didn't realize I was grieving what I thought the business could have looked like, the possibilities of how it could have gone. And so, again, nothing is ever guaranteed in life. Life lesson number 29. It's hard being the black sheep. People don't talk about enough. And black sheep does not mean just doing drugs and alcohol. It really is maybe breaking the generational cycle or generational trauma because you know that everyone in your family is toxic or they've been doing things a certain way, or even the career workplace, ruffling some feathers, right? Or personally, it can be outgrowing people, outgrowing friends. And that's a hard one because no one gives you a heads up about that. So you don't expect it. Or splitting with people that don't support your path. And you will find your tribe. But again, grieving all that and saying goodbye to these people that you kind of maybe had an expectation to be on the path with you. And it's hard because there's a lot of nuances, microaggressions that happen in the workplace or in family, in culture. I grew up in a patriarchal culture, I'm Vietnamese, and I'm Vietnamese American. And there's a lot of unfairness that goes on. And some people refuse to see it. Some people are unaware. And I think I was teeter-tottering whether or not to spend my energy and time to teach them or just find a tribe that gets you. And I chose the latter. Speaking of tribe, I have started a spiritual community online. It's free. It's on Facebook called The Happy Healers. So definitely check it out. It's where you can get support on your journey and connect with other like-minded individuals. And so if that sounds like you, make sure to check out my Facebook group, The Happy Healers. Life lesson number 30. This is something that a friend told me once. I'm going to read it off here. I can waste my energy and time on what happened and why, but I'm going to choose to say thank you for letting me see this sooner than later. I'm going to use the energy on what I can do now and take action on things to make tomorrow better. Life lesson number 29. There are two things in life to really be mindful to pick a healthy version of, and that is going to be your work and your partner. Because if you think about it, those are the two places or people that you will spend most of your week with. Life lesson number 28. Do not push aside the pink flags. You'll see the pink flags, or even your friends will see it when you're dating someone, right? And the hard part is pink flags sometimes aren't strong enough to tell your friend, hey, maybe you want to call off the wedding and like cancel the $20,000 that you already paid off on it. Same thing with career and job. It's the unhealthy workplace. It doesn't get better. It doesn't. And I've told this to someone else that was going through not a great workplace too. And they just kept at it. And later on, they're like, you're right. It doesn't get any better. Life lesson number 27. It's the instability or the unreliability that causes chaos and unhealthy dynamics. When a person is good on a certain day and then they're bad another day or toxic and then they're good again, it creates a lot of anxiety because you're not sure what to expect. It could be your boss, it could be your partner, someone you work with. And this is something my therapist pointed out, saying that it's the ups and downs and the inconsistency is what creates an unhealthy dynamic. But, because it's up and down, you kind of have, again, that hope of thinking, oh, things might become better, so maybe we'll just keep trying, or maybe I'll just keep trying, which leads me to life lesson number 26. Don't stay just because you had history. And this is really hard. This is a hard lesson for me to learn. And I think a lot of people can resonate with this because especially with romantic relationships or for me, friends, right? So sometimes we stay because they've done things for us in the past, they were there for us, but we forget that we've outgrown the version that we grew up with. And as you heal or as you continue forward in life, you come to certain realizations. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. It's just your friends or family, romantic relationship dynamics, they're going to change over time. Life is going to change and it is painful. Another way of grieving as well, of saying kind of goodbye to them, even though it's history or even they were there for you for a long time, or they were there for you for this moment of hardship. But that doesn't mean that you should stay. Life lesson number 25. You cannot grow in poisoned soil. No matter how hard you try, whether it's work, relationships, family. This is something my grandpa told me in the afterlife because it was with my time at Disney. And I couldn't advance at all. It was toxic. It was just not a good place, you know. So he gave the analogy of a flower, and if the soil is poisoned, you can't grow at all, no matter how much you water it, right? There's another saying that goes, you can't heal if you keep drinking water from a poisoned well. And that's why when you leave a toxic environment, that's when you start seeing clarity, because you're not in that same energy. And sometimes people will stay because of financial reasons, but or maybe the job pays well, but you will pay for it later in your health, your physical health, your mental health, your doctor and hospital bills. It will cost you. And also it can cost you in so many ways, mentally and emotionally, because you end up going in another relationship and you might end up ruining it, because if you have trauma, you'll see things in a distorted lens, or you might project insecurities on future relationships. Life lesson number 24. People who have positive toxicity are usually hiding from something. I remember a coworker saying positive things, and something just didn't feel right about it. And then I kind of sat with it and realized that this person is avoiding the source of the problem, right? They don't want to confront the issue of what's going on in the team, or and I found out that she grew up kind of shielded from problems as well. And what people don't realize about people that are toxic positivity is that even though their intentions are good, they are enablers of situations without realizing it. Which leads me to life lesson number 23. People who say, just get over it, or different variations of it, are usually avoidant or they're unaware. And so, like my family, I have a brother who's older, but we do not get along at all. We don't really talk. In my family, I don't think they realize that they're enablers of unhealthy relationships. You can also go on my YouTube channel, The Happy Healing Shop, and see me talking to my mom in the afterlife. And the thing about my family is they try to force us to get along. And she said, what I found very interesting was, if it's forced, then it's not real. And that has to do with love, any type of relationships. If you force two people to try to love each other, it's not real. And same thing here with me and my brother. But there are so many variations of what my family has said to me. And I think the intention's always like, be the bigger person, all that kind of stuff. But they don't address, actually, they're not aware of what happened during childhood and growing up, things like that. And if you think about it, if just get over it, or I don't know why you can't just move on, if that actually worked, if that truly worked, then why is there war? Why is there conflict? Because everyone would have gotten over it. And so it's hard, because when you talk to these type of people, they don't see that there's a whole process of really, first of all, not invalidating someone's experience, but also of healing and also change. Sometimes it's really hard to sometimes I don't even know if healing is the right thing for every situation. It's always different, right? Or even whether or not for everyone to heal their inner child. So it just made me think, if you say that and say, just get over it or move on, why do you think that has not worked for the rest of the world? If you can just get over it, there would be no need for doctors. There would be no need for counselors and therapists. They wouldn't need to exist. Life lesson number 22. Let people hit rock bottom and leave them if you have to. Now, this is really hard, because I know if you're listening in, you probably are the type that wants to help friends out, be there for people. You probably have a great heart, It's hard because I'm thinking right now of if you had a loved one, or your son or daughter has an addiction to something, or even if mentally they are, you have a friend that you just tried helping, but they weren't ready to also seek, let's say, mental help. And I remember a channeling once where my grandpa in the afterlife said, sometimes people have to hit rock bottom, because it's like falling into a well. all you see is darkness. But once you hit the bottom of the well and look up, then you see the light. So there are people that do need to hit rock bottom in order to do the, oh, wow, I really do need to change my life around. And it is scary, especially if you're a parent or like your partner and you don't want them to die. But there's a point where you have to watch out for your own mental health and let the professional experts handle that. And it's really hard because I think the hardest part about mental health is people not wanting to get professional help. And they lean on you, and then you end up becoming a therapist, and then you end up becoming burnt out and resentful, which has happened to me before. And it's hard. It's hard when you want to help out people, but they don't want, they're not ready for the help, or they're not going to go for the professional help. Big life lesson number 21. You are going to grieve in so many ways you did not know exist. Okay, I'm going to read off my notes on the side here because I have a lot to say about this, right? So grief and loss comes not just when someone dies, it's job loss, miscarriage. Another one people don't realize when you get older, grieving over a life you thought you were going to have, right? Or there's just, in your 30s, could be happening in your 20s too. I didn't get a warning, I guess. There's a lot of loss that's just unexpected, right? And the thing is, grief, I feel like, or just life situations, they can change you for the better or for the worse. I've seen both sides in people. I talked to a couple friends about what's going on in their lives. And for example, we are both grieving because she knows her life and friendships are going to change once she has a kid. And all her friends don't plan to have kids. They like me, I plan to be child-free by choice. And over here, I'm also grieving because all my friends are going to have kids. And I'm thinking here, damn, I need to make more or new friends that don't want children, because what am I going to do in the future now? You know, our lives and schedules are just different. So again, with different layers of grief, it's also people not being able to have kids. I know people that have been trying, doing IVF, doing all these types of methods, and it's been mentally, emotionally draining on them of saying, okay, we're going to try, and the procedure failed, you know, or women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and realizing they're never going to have kids. And again, it's back to that. I thought my life was going to be a certain way. I thought I was going to have a family. We're going to do this, that, and this is going to happen, but it didn't. And dealing with those emotions, you know, losing children, grief of, for me, not back then when I had a split with a business partner, grieving over what I thought the business could have looked like, right? Or a personal type of failure, grief of a friendship. You didn't realize there's people you're just gonna grow apart, or there's just a tension and it's kind of slowly built up and out of nowhere. It feels like it's out of nowhere, right? Or grief of your visions, your goals, and dreams, you know, and saying goodbye to them if they don't work out. Or grief and loss of identity, or shedding the old layers and versions of you. So I'm going to give an example of me not being the model Asian daughter, and I'm going to do so many things that are different, and a lot of people are not going to be happy about it. And I thought this is something I should be, but it's shedding a lot of layers to become my authentic self. And speaking of grief, I will be launching a live grief and loss program in the next couple of months, because I realize a lot of trauma comes from this, and it's really important to process all these emotions in order to be able to integrate it as part of who we are, but also be able to move forward with our lives. More information to come, so make sure you subscribe to my email newsletter at thehappyhealingshop.com. Life lesson number 20. Hard work alone is not enough. If you are trying to go up the corporate ladder, or a ladder anywhere, work politics, timing, work environment, they all play a role. Life lesson number 19, don't find a job that you think is your dream job. What I mean by this is a lot of people go about their lives thinking, I want to be the director of XYZ, right? From my experience, the thing people should be looking for is, do they have a healthy management? If you have a dream job, let's say you want to be an animator, it will become your nightmare, and you've worked so hard for it, right? You went to school, you built a portfolio, and you end up working for such a toxic place you're going to question your worth, your value, your career choices, what you went to school for. And that dream job is going to become a nightmare job. And sometimes people will just leave that whole entire career. So the most important thing, honestly, is management. Because if your management is very healthy and advocates for you, yeah, they'll be open to talking about promotions. They'll be open to talking about where you can move within the company. Life lesson number 18. Don't ask for advice from someone who doesn't have what you want. That's a piece of advice my assistant shared with me from someone else that she got. And it's true. If you are starting a small business, you don't want to talk to people that aren't into entrepreneurship because, most likely they're going to talk you out of it when things aren't working well. In relationships, you're not going to want to ask relationship advice from someone that's in a toxic relationship. You want to ask it from someone that is a very loving relationship with their partner, which kind of blends in with life lesson number 17. Don't tell people about your business when you start out. I know you might think, what? Are you supposed to share it with the world? Yes. But one thing I did regret was telling about Happy Healing Shop with family and some friends because it was met with a lot of resistance. It was definitely a new thing because I used to be Catholic and now it's like, what are you doing? Wait, is talking the afterlife to spirits, is that a real thing? Like, what are are you sure? And I think it would have been better looking back for me to talk or find people that were spiritual, that were open to talking about this instead, and that were running their own business and knowing how to navigate the ups and downs of having your own business or entrepreneurship, which also bleeds into life lesson number 16. Talk to entrepreneurs about ideas and problem solving when it comes to your business, right? So if you talk to 9-to-5 people, not all of them, but quite a few of them are more going to have that mindset of stability. I want a stable paycheck, stable job. But when you talk to entrepreneurs, they're going to be able to say, hey, I went through this too. This is what I dealt. This is how I problem solved it, or this is how I got through this. Life lesson number 15. When it comes to hiring someone, whether it's a temp or full-time, a brilliant jerk or douchebag who's good at what they do is worse than a lazy, incompetent worker. And the reason I say this is because I have a friend that works in recruitment and she hires temps for companies. And she says those brilliant assholes are the ones that end up being hard and end up giving you more difficulties. Life lesson number 14. The behind the scenes is where you get the truth. I love being behind the scenes of anything because that is where you can ask questions or you find out how things really work. On camera, everything's different. Things are edited. There's people can build a certain persona. At Disney, I remember so many people wanting to have coffee chats with my boss because I was an executive assistant. And they would only want to talk to the VP. When in reality, you can find out so much more about a company or a team or about the work when you talk to even an assistant, right? Because we see everything, we hear everything. And even the associate level people where they're actually doing the nitty gritty work. Also with social media, I have done social media for a couple of clients. And it's interesting because on social media, it's curated. You see that they are thriving or they look like they're having a great time. But everyone at the end of the day is the same. They are worried about getting clients and they are also worried about if they can make ends meet and get sales or get people to book their services. It's all the same, but that's not what's going to be portrayed on social media. And I think that's what's helped me try really hard to not compare myself to other businesses. I still do sometimes, and it's hard, but I can catch myself because I realize, hey, as someone that has worked behind the scenes for people's social media, this is not even close to what's actually going on with their lives. If you think about it, talk to a wedding planner, talk to a divorce lawyer, a marriage counselor, people in HR. They will probably have stories for you where you go, wow, I did not know that was going on. Or wow, I didn't know that that's how people are. And this is why I love behind the scenes. Life lesson number 13. Come to the table with not only problems, but also ideas for solutions. And so when I hire or I work with people, this is what I run to a lot. A lot of times people might say, this is going wrong, this is not working, etc. Or I'm blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, but why have you come with solutions to figure out how, what can be done about it? Or are you coming to us so we can figure it all out? what's going on here. Life lesson number 12. With most humans, there will be people who agree with you, but most will not advocate for you or back you up. This was a hard lesson for me to learn. And I think it happened in Disney, happened in my family, which I'll have to talk more in a separate episode. But until that changes, that's why things last longer than they should. Like Me Too movement, everything. It's slowly happening with certain issues, but many people have fear. They're scared of confrontation, or they don't want to face the issue, or there's shame and guilt involved. And it made me think how in the past, or even the present now, that whistleblowers and pioneers probably run into this often. I had a family member a couple months ago ask me to leave because he felt like I was throwing him under the bus when I was complaining to people that the house was dirty and there was nothing being done about it, etc. And quite a few people have also told me and agreed with me on how the house wasn't clean and that it was dirty. But the thing is, I know that they didn't advocate for me. And the thing is, I felt like they didn't back me up, even though they agreed. My therapist told me that many people in life will use you in general and what you say to tell their opinion. So, for example, you might say, oh, Trang thought the house is dirty, etc. But they won't say, and also I agree with her as well, because that does ruffle feathers. Try doing that in the workplace. Try doing that in other places. Like, most people are scared. They're fearful for repercussions. But it was even at Disney too. So it's really hard when you feel like you might be telling the truth and other people have agreed with you, but they're not going to be standing behind you when you say it. Life lesson number 11, work on your self-esteem as soon as possible. Most parents, they did not do a good job doing this. They tried their best. We know that. But what I notice in my clients and also in my community is that when you have a low amount of self-esteem, it holds you back in all the areas of your life and how you show up. So it could be relationships, it could be in the workplace, not being able to speak up for yourself or negotiate for yourself a better salary. And also it holds there's a lot of fear and holds people back from going for their dreams and for what lights them up, or even starting their own business. So, whenever I launch my spiritual business coaching program, the biggest hurdle is people's self-esteem and perfectionism, thinking they're not good enough. It's not actually even the website making and the tech and all that stuff, which is what I originally thought it was. It's actually the mindset. One piece of advice I can say to parents right now listening in is raise your kids in a way that builds their self-esteem, because it will play out as adults in relationships when they're 30 years, 40 years, even 50 years down the road. I've seen it. And if you find yourself with low self-esteem, surround yourself with people that lift you up. Seek therapy, counseling, so you can work on it. Which leads me to life lesson number 10. It sucks so much that people hurt you and have caused you an immense amount of pain. But at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to heal ourselves. And I know it feels very, very unfair, because you wouldn't have to be going through all this if it weren't for them. Life lesson number 9, start therapy sooner than you think. And everyone can benefit from it, and everyone actually needs it, but many are unaware. And they don't realize that it is a slow process. It's not something it's like working out. You can't expect to lose 10 pounds in a day. It takes a lot of work. A lot of people don't want to do the inner work because it's painful to revisit past painful memories. On the other hand, I wish also it was more accessible here and affordable, at least here in America, because a lot of violence, I believe a lot of violence and a lot of hate could be prevented if we all went to therapy. And also keep in mind, the first therapist you find might not even be a good match. There are bad therapists out there, just like there are bad doctors out there. But when you find a good one, oh man, what a relief it is. I am an advocate of therapy, and you deserve to get the help that you need. Life lesson number 8, question things. It got me to where I am today and who I am as a person. Question things that you were taught. you might not be able to decipher it at first, but I believe that's your intuition trying to tell you something. Life lesson number 7. The path of empowerment is better than the path of feeling tied down or held down for money. So a lot of times people will stay in unhealthy relationships because the other person is providing the finances, or a toxic work environment because the money is too good. And it's difficult because as humans, we do need to pay the bills, we need to pay rent or the mortgage in order to survive. In those situations, sometimes we can feel like we're in jail or very disempowered. We can't escape because we don't have that financial freedom. We'll lose that financial stability. But it is freeing and empowering when you are able to walk away from an abusive relationship or a toxic environment. Because at the end of the day, at least you chose that life path of moving forward, even though that path might not be the easiest to do, instead of staying in a life that feels trapped. Life lesson number 6. It is the tiny, repetitive moments in life that bring joy. I realized this after college, how much I missed being around connections like friends. And looking back, I don't think about, oh my gosh, the most epic days and nights of college was us going out clubbing and partying hard. It was always the, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, or where we had dinner. We cooked dinner. Usually I would cook or someone else would cook. And we just hung out and caught up with each other about our lives, what's going on, any events coming up that we want to go to. And I miss cooking and baking with friends and watching movies, playing board games, and living so close to each other. Now all my friends are spread across the nation. And I had some of my best friends visit this past year. And there was a Sunday where all we did was just cook and breakfast and eat in the backyard. And we both felt that it was so nostalgic. And I remember smiling and feeling, this is what makes me happy in life. So think about those tiny moments, those small repetitive moments, whether it's your housemate bringing home a little treat for you every week just because they were thinking about you, or even when you do a weekly hangout with your friends. It's those moments that I believe really bring joy, but they're overlooked a lot of the times. Okay, life lesson number 5. It will pass. The real quote that I like is, it will pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass. Because I think that's a more realistic way of saying it. I've been personally through bouts of depression in my life, usually when something's happening in my life, a situation. A few months ago, I went through a transition of moving unexpectedly because a family member asked me to move out. And just remember that you can always reach out, even though the moment does not feel like it. You can always reach out to community, to friends that you might feel safe with, sometimes strangers. They're willing to listen. People want to help. There are people out there that want to help you. And there are times where I did not want to be here on this earth. But people in the Happy Healing Shop community, my friends, they helped me in many ways that they could. And because of that, I can say that I was able to choose to stay here. And I find myself that when I'm in a difficult situation, there are people that are ready to help, that want to help me. So I am saying this because even if you're feeling so low right now, just reach out. Just say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit, or hey, I'm feeling, sometimes I sugarcoat it and I say, I'm feeling a little down. Do you want to grab lunch? Or I need to get out. Just know that people are ready to talk. Just know that people are ready to help. It's hard to podcast and talk when your voice is crackling. Okay, life lesson number 4. No one talks enough about the process. So whether it's healing, trying to master something. And so there's a lot of quotes out there where they say like, just do it, or like, you'll get there, or I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. And sometimes it can come off as toxic positivity, or sometimes it's like a quick inspirational solution, right? But things like building a business is such an up and down journey. Healing is such an up and down journey. The perfect example I like to use is the process of baking. So if you are for the first time making cake from scratch without a recipe, you have no recipes at all. Pretend recipes were not invented. You're trying to there's the cake falls flat, it's too wet, it's too dry. People don't realize the whole process is so frustrating sometimes. You want to throw the cake batter across across the wall, and have to go back to the shops and buy more flour and keep retrying all these things to see what finally works. And people don't realize that anything in life, healing or your whole entire journey, all they see on social media is the end product. And so it gives a false sense of, oh, it's really easy to do. Why aren't you there yet? So we need to talk more about the trial and error process, and how the feeling I'm starting over is very common and it's so frustrating. But that's why I invite you and everyone to share that more often so it normalizes things. Life lesson number 3, you are capable of anything. If someone tells you otherwise, you better say bye-bye to them. No, for real though, if you don't think you are, question about who instilled that belief in you. Because again, a baby is not born and thinks, I can't do this anymore, or I'm not good enough. Who told you that? Or what culture, society has told you that? And help others believe in themselves as well. I notice a difference in parenting when someone has grown up with people that have told them that they can do anything, they're capable. There's a difference between arrogance and then there's people of lifting you up, right? If you check out episode 4 and episode 7 of my podcast, you'll see that I talked to Ange and Susie, and I know them personally, and the amount of confidence they have is not even arrogant at all. It's more believing that they're able to do things without having fear of holding them back because their grandparents or their parents told them growing up that they're capable of doing it. They're capable of being what they want to be. And I think that is, if I were to have kids, that's something I would want to instill in them because I see the difference it makes in how people turn out as adults. Life lesson number 2, never underestimate the impact you have on others. There's a story I heard online where a person dropped their books on their way home. And a gentleman stopped by and helped him pick it all up. Turns out later on that the person that dropped all their books, they were clearing out, I think, either their locker or their office space because they were planning to go home and take their life. And so sometimes you never know these little instances where you can touch someone, whether it's a smile, whether it's hey, how are you? Or hey, just texting you to see how you've been. You just popped across my mind. And I remember a boss telling me this, saying never underestimate the impact you have on others, because sometimes when you go day by day, live your life, you go, it's just another day for you, right? You don't think that conversation you have with someone made them feel a little better. Or even, this is a great example someone told me. This was in college. Actually, the video editor, I cannot name her due to legal reasons right now, but in college, I gave her apparently, I don't remember this. When it was her birthday, I don't remember any of this, by the way. I was asking all her friends, what should we get for her birthday? What is she like? And a friend figured out that she likes ducks. And so I got a stuffed animal duck and actually came to her birthday party. Again, I don't remember any of this, but she pulled me photos to show proof. And I gave her a stuffed animal duck, and she said it meant so much to her that I came and it was a thoughtful gift for her, getting a stuffed animal duck. To me, it was just another day. But you never know when just a little gesture or a little text or something you say to someone can make their day or even get them to live another day. All right, so the number 1 life lesson I learned. You ready for it? The story you're afraid to tell is a story that needs to be heard. This came to me when I was working on the first season of my podcast. And it made me think that silence is the major reason why things continue behind closed doors. When we unite our voices, that is when we bring our power together. When someone says, don't ruffle these feathers at the workplace or in the family, or keep the peace, shh, quiet, don't say that, it won't look good. Any other phrases like that, I'm sure you've been told. I remember seeing on Instagram someone saying, it's keeping the peace, but whose peace is it keeping? So don't allow people to put you down or silence your voice. I do have some guests that come on and they're afraid to share their story. And from a host's point of view, I'm like, you have to tell your story. This is going to help inspire other people and they're going to feel less lonely. And, when people are more vulnerable on my podcast, those episodes tend to be really great and I get good feedback on it. So yeah, don't allow people to put you down or to silence your voice. And that's it. All 35 lessons I learned at the age of 35. Now, do you want me to do a deep dive podcast into any of these topics? If so, DM me, email me, comment down below if you're able to. And if you loved this episode of the Happy Healing Shop podcast, you will love our private community, a space where we dive into all things spiritual, from those eye-opening awakenings to decoding the messages that you've been receiving. Connect with other intuitive souls who get it as we share stories and navigate this journey together. And that's not all. There are healing events, transformative workshops, shadow work journals, and more. But the true magic, it is the incredible support waiting for you. And imagine having that squad cheering you on, making your spiritual and healing journey a lot less lonely and more like a tribe that's lifting you up. Join us at thehappyhealingshop.com/membership. Again, that's thehappyhealingshop.com/membership. Thank you so much for listening to my story, especially on today's special birthday episode, and for being here with me. And I'll see you next week.